to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I am going to talk about some of the places that I think will be coaching vacancies come Black Monday or the conclusion of the playoffs in the case of the Dallas Cowboys. But before I get started, just want to give a quick shout out to One Giant Rebuttal. His link will be in the description below. If you have not subscribed to his channel, please do so. He was the one that gave me the idea for this video, so I want to give him credit for that. And I thought it was a great idea for a video, as a lot of Giants fans are excited for this day. For those of you that do not know, Black Monday is the day after the conclusion of the regular season, which is at the the point in time where teams announce whether or not they will be moving on with their head coaches, unless, of course, they are a potential playoff team, whether it be the Cowboys, whether it be the Texans, someone like that. Bill O'Brien, I suppose, is a possibility. Jason Garrett seems like it's a probability, but, we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But in this video, I'm going to go over the 7 most likely places, in my opinion, where there will be a coaching vacancy. And yes, as you guessed it, the Giants are one of them. Now, this doesn't mean that the Giants will definitively move on from Pat Shurmur, but we all know that it's certainly a possibility. And I wanted to go over where I would rank the Giants situation if I was a head coach from the outside looking in. If I was a Ron Rivera, if I was, whoever, a Mike McCarthy, someone looking for a job, and how attractive it would be to me as a coach coming in. And the way I'm going to assess this is current roster, potential future roster. Obviously, how do I evaluate that? The draft pick that I'm going to have in terms of the order, the cap space, things like that, things along that nature. Now, of course, a lot of these teams are going to have a high draft pick, which is why they have coaching vacancies to begin with. I didn't even list the Bengals job, which is a potential hire for sure. They could certainly move on after 1 year. We'll see if they do. I would think it would be unfair after 1 year, being that he had such a bad roster, and that he will have the number 1 pick, which means he'll have the quarterback of his choice. But yeah, that would certainly be a place that may attract some coaches, being that you're going to be able to take a Burrow to start out your tenure. So if that were to become available, that's certainly a place. But I didn't list that place. I went over my 7 most likely destinations, and we're going to get it kicked off with the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers, of course, are a destination that we know will be available. Come Black Monday. They've already moved on from their coach, Ron Rivera. They've already said that they've begun the coaching search. Now, when you look at the Carolina Panthers right now, you look at their roster, obviously they have some talented players on the defense with a Kuechly. They have a very talented running back in McCaffrey. And they have some talent. The team is 2 years removed from the playoffs. They have the potential of Cam Newton coming back if a coach is attracted to him being the quarterback, or moving on from him and drafting a quarterback from scratch, which is something that would certainly attract a coach. In terms of their cap space, this is what you're looking at. Right now, according to Sport Track, they would have $31 million in cap space as the roster is, currently constructed. Now, I didn't go over the potential cuts that they could make. Obviously, if they were able to rid themselves of a Cam Newton, they would save some money there. I wasn't too sure of what its dead cap it was, but they have a little money to play with. They'll probably be picking around the 10 spot in the draft, and they have some talent to build around. They could definitely use some more weapons on the offensive end. Their offensive line, I expect them to lose Darrell Williams, but it's okay, and they have a pretty strong defense. It's not a horrible spot for a head coach to potentially land. And the other thing that I would point out about the Carolina Panthers is in the past, they have shown stability, right? They've had Ron Rivera there for 9 years. So if I'm a coach from the outside looking in, that's something I'm attracted to. I don't want to go into a situation, ideally, where I feel like they're going to flip the coach in a year or two if I don't get the job done. Carolina has shown patience. Ron Rivera's first year there, the team struggled. As a matter of fact, I think his first 2 years there, they struggled. Then they went out and they got Dave Gettleman, and they had, pretty sustained success. So they've shown a track record of sticking with their coaches. So to me, that's a pretty attractive potential job from the outside looking in. The next job I'm going to go over is the Atlanta Falcons. And a lot of people would look at this potential coaching spot and say this is a very attractive spot. You got Matt Ryan. You got Julio Jones. You've got weapons galore. You're going to have another high draft pick. The defense leaves a lot to be desired, though, and they've certainly underachieved the last 2 years, and I expect them to probably move on from Dan Quinn. Now, before Dan Quinn, they showed some stability. They had Smith there for a while. The problem I see with the Falcons is, one, you're not going to be picking that high in the draft because they seem to be getting hot down the stretch. They've beaten some good teams. I think they'll probably be picking between the 10 and 15 range. But two, they are locked in, and Matt Ryan's not getting younger. Matt Ryan's making a ton of money. Julio Jones is making a ton of money. They have limited cap space. You're not going to be able to improve the team via free agency. And like I said, you're not picking that high in the draft. So if I'm a head coach, I feel like I could win with a Matt Ryan at this age, which it's possible we can. Obviously, he's been to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I'm not that attracted to this job because when you look at the cap situation, due to those two contracts that they have up at the top of the roster, I think those two players, Julio and Ryan alone, make over $55 million combined or thereabouts. They are negative $3 million when it comes to cap space for next year, as of right now. And that's a problem. That's certainly a problem as a head coach looking in. So to me, the Falcons don't look that attractive. Yes, I have an established quarterback, but he's on the other end of his prime, and I'm paying a wide receiver a ton of money. I am not super attracted to that Atlanta Falcons job. The next job we're going to look at is the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys is a very interesting situation. The main detractor everybody knows is the owner, Jerry Jones. He's not the ideal owner. He's a guy that prefers a puppet for a head coach, which is why Jason Garrett has been there for as long as he has. But on the bright side, Jerry Jones has certainly shown patience. Now, he didn't show patience early on with Jimmy Johnson in the 90s when he moved on from Barry Switzer, but recently he's shown a lot of patience with Jason Garrett. He's been able to stick through him through thick and thin, and who knows? Maybe he'll stick with him again if they make the playoffs this year at 8-8. But a lot of people think they will probably move on from Garrett at the beginning of the year. Obviously, unless they have a miracle run and go to the Super Bowl, which I suppose is possible, but not likely. I don't see the Cowboys getting out of the second round this year. And if they don't, I'd be leaning that they'd probably fire Garrett. Garrett, to this point in time, has not displayed that he's a great head coach. Now, I don't know if it's been his decisions or Jerry Jones's decision to get away from the team's biggest strength, which is the ground and pound. But they've certainly done that this year, and it's been a really bad decision in my opinion. But yeah, I expect them to move on from Garrett, and I think this is a pretty attractive job outside of the Jerry Jones factor. Because if you look at the cap space, they have $86 million in cap space. Now, with that being said, they still have a lot of players on their roster that they're going to have to pay. Most people assume they're going to be paying Dak Prescott. If you pay Dak Prescott, it's going to run you probably at least $30 million a year, $30 to $35 million a year. Now, they could franchise him, but it would still eat up that amount of cap space. So that 85 right off the bat drops to 55 to 50. I didn't see many contracts on their roster that they could cut. They're pretty much committed to a lot of these players. Then you got Amari Cooper. So Amari Cooper you're probably going to keep, and he's probably going to run you about $20 million a year. So you're talking that 85 is more like 35 after that, and that's without, potentially bringing back other players. They still have some cap space, and they have an established foundation. The offensive line this year has been the best in the sport. They have the best run blocking and best pass blocking. However, they're going to be a year older, and some of these guys are going to be coming up on free agency. So that's something that will need to be taken into account for a head coach. But overall, from a win-now standpoint, if I was a head coach, this is probably the best situation, in my opinion. I think it is the best situation out of all the potential spots. However, of course, Dak Prescott, who's probably going to be forced upon me if I'm a head coach, may not be the quarterback I want going forward. So that is a potential detractor, but it's certainly a very attractive job if I'm looking to compete day one. And the fact that I said Jerry Jones has shown some stability with Jason Garrett. He's had a couple of years here where he had the reason, a reason to fire him, and he hasn't. But if you go there, Jerry Jones is certainly going to have some say, and a coach like a Matt Rule, for example, would not want to deal with that. Next team we're going to go over is the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, of course, coming into this year had a lot of high hopes. They were coming off a year in which they, I think they went 7-8-1. They had a rookie quarterback in Baker Mayfield who had a really strong year, brought some hope to that organization. They go out, they bring in an Odell Beckham. They go out, they bring in a Kareem Hunt. They bring in all these big names for the offense. And, their younger players get another year of experience, whether it's a Baker Mayfield, whether it's a Myles Garrett. And the team has just struggled mightily. They've definitely not lived up to expectations. I think most people had them as at least as a 10-win team and the favorite to come out of the North. Well, they're going to miss the playoffs, and Freddie Kitchens, a lot of people think, will probably be fired due to the fact that Baker Mayfield has actually regressed this year. Now, it's possible Kitchens keeps his job. Baker Mayfield has certainly rebounded over the last 5 weeks or so of the year, and he's played pretty well, albeit against, subpar competition. Beckham still only has 2 touchdowns, though, and players are complaining and saying that they want to get out of there. And I'm sure Kitchens has a lot to do with that. So I would guess they will move on from Kitchens. Now, in terms of how attractive of a job this is, well, They stayed with Hugh Jackson a little bit longer than most people would have expected, being that I think they had one win in 2 years. So I guess you could look at that. But in terms of history, this team's been the doormat since I've been watching football. And it just seems like nothing ever works there. Now, it could be attractive for a head coach because he might look at it like similar to a Kurt Schilling with the Red Sox. He went over there, he won a World Series, he was thought to be a god. If a coach ever came in there and won a Super Bowl, it's definitely a challenge to take on, but it could be incredibly rewarding. It's probably the worst organization in football over the last 30 years, though. Certainly not the most attractive job on this list. But like I said, you have generational talent there in an Odell Beckham if you can make him happy, in a Myles Garrett. You certainly have some nice pieces and, another decent draft pick coming in this year. In terms of the cap space, they have $52 million, according to Sport Track, to spend in the offseason. So they still have some cap space in players that they could potentially bring in. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, it is a somewhat attractive job if you take away the history aspect of it. But they do have talent, and it's a team that's underperformed. If the right coach came in there, they certainly could compete for the playoffs next year. So in terms of win now, from a talent perspective, it's probably the second most attractive job. Next job we're going to go over is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville Jaguars, by all accounts, are probably going to move on from Marrone. They've already moved on from Coughlin. It seems like they're going to have a complete regime change. To me, from the outside looking in, this is a very unattractive job. I'm not a fan of this job if I'm a coach, just being completely honest. I know I've got some maybe Jaguar subscribers who may not like hearing that, but that's the truth. Doug, they just have not been a stable organization over the course of their history. They haven't had a lot of success. They just signed Nick Foles to an atrocious contract. The guy's already hurt. And you got to figure that they're going to try to stick with Nick Foles for another year. I don't want to be forced Nick Foles on me. The guy's a career journeyman who had a nice stretch and won a Super Bowl in a great system there with the Philadelphia Eagles. But, yeah, I don't want to be forced Nick Foles on me. And maybe they won't do that. But even so, that means the cap situation isn't that good. A lot of their younger players are going to hit free agency. Are they going to keep a Yannick Ngakoue? These guys are going to cost money. Now, they did accumulate some draft picks by trading away Ramsey. So I guess that's a positive. But overall, I am not a huge fan of that Jaguar job. It's not something I'd really be that attracted to if I was on the outside looking. And this may be the least desirable job, in my opinion, out of all the potential coaching vacancies. And here is the cap space. They do have a little money to spend. They have $52 million, according to that. But like I said, if you keep an Ngakoue, if you keep guys like that, that's going to eat into some of that cap space. They have a good, strong young defense, but they could lose some of those players, and the team has underperformed over the last 2 years. You're also going to have a complete regime change, which I guess could be attractive to a coach if you give him full say. We'll have to see how that works out. I guess this is a situation where a coach could come in and have full say. But overall, I am not a fan of the Jaguar job. The next job I wanted to go over was the New York Giants, our team, a team that we all know and love. If they were to move on from Pat Shurmur, as I said in the past, to me that's not attractive if I'm a head coach from the outside looking in, because that's two coaches you've gone through in the last 3 years. However, in terms of history, the team has shown stability, right? They stuck with Fossil for 7 or 8 years. They stuck with Coughlin for more than a decade. They've had success. They've gone to 5 Super Bowls. They've won 2. Since 1985, since I've been born, they have the second most Super Bowl championships outside of the New England Patriots. They're a rich organization with rich history. Those are the things that could attract you. They have Saquon Barkley. They have a lot of cap space. They're going to have a very early draft pick. They have a young quarterback who, obviously the coach that comes on will have to like him, but it's certainly shown glimpses of having talent. So there are some good things. They have a young defense that is going to grow. And the thing that comes down to me for the Giants job is how much say you're going to give the coach. Will Dave Gettleman stay on? If I'm a coach, I may not want Gettleman to be my GM. I don't want to be told what to do. I might want to come in there and have some say in the personnel. Dave Gettleman is very brash, but we'll have to see what the Giants do with that whole situation. And I wouldn't rule out Pat staying on for another year, but it's certainly a possibility that they will be looking for a coach. In terms of the cap space right now, you're looking at $71 million after they cut Janoris Jenkins, which is a lot of change. Now you factor in the Leo Williams signing, but they will probably cut Ogletree to offset some of that money, and they're probably going to have at least $70 million in cap space after they even keep a Leonard Williams. So that's definitely an attractive thing, as well as potentially having the second pick, and if not so, still probably having a top 4 or 5 pick. So definitely some things to look at there. They also, I believe, have 9 or 10 picks in this year's upcoming draft. So A lot of good stuff there. You have some cap space. You have young assets. So it's certainly, to me, a somewhat attractive job. Wouldn't be my most attractive, but it's pretty attractive. And then finally, the Washington Redskins. Of course, the Washington Redskins moved on from Jay Gruden. They fired him. They have a young quarterback in a Dwayne Haskins. And they definitely have some talent on that roster. But, when you look at the cap situation, they have $48 million. The question to me is, Dwayne Haskins has not shown enough for me as a head coach coming in. Do I believe in this guy to be the quarterback going forward? Now, some may. I think Dwayne Haskins has talent. I was a fan of him going into the draft. You will have to find a coach that believes in Haskins. And if you do, maybe you get somebody to take this job. They have moderate cap space. Again, much like the Giants, they're going to have a high draft pick. They have some talent in the trenches. They could use some more playmakers. The job, though, overall, it's been a lot of instability. Daniel Snyder is probably one of the worst owners in the sport. To me, it's not a very attractive job. To be fair, most of these jobs aren't that attractive. That's why they're available. But, if I'm being completely honest, from a win-now perspective, I think the most obvious coaching hire that's the most attractive is the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, you got to deal with Jerry Jones. Cleveland Browns have talent. Can you put it all together, though? They don't have the richest history. I think after that, the Giants are right there. I mean, the Carolina Panthers certainly, maybe you could rank there. You could rank the Atlanta Falcons. But I'm not in love with having to tie myself to a Matt Ryan who's past his prime, to tie myself to a Julio Jones who's getting up there in age and is making a lot of money. I actually would prefer the Giant job to the Falcon job. That's just my honest opinion, trying to be as unbiased as possible. But I'd probably rank the Giants job in the top 3 or 4 if I'm being completely honest, even with the potential instability. But they're certainly not the top job. And that's what you got to worry about as a Giant fan. Are we going to be, attractive enough to a top-tier guy like Ron Rivera or whoever your coach may be, a Ruler or McCarthy, to come out and coach this team? And we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, last time we weren't, being that we missed on the guys that were our first choices, McDaniels, guys like that. So we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I just want to get a quick video up on it as Black Monday is fast approaching. Sorry the video went long, but I had a lot to talk about. And as always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.